Schladming-Dachstein, Austria. So warm applause for all of them. Hi, dear. Good morning.
Un poco como la otra, el otro extremo aquí.
¿Necesitamos otra? Hello, good morning. ¿Cómo estás? Nice to see you again.
Muy bien. Muchas gracias. And
All yours.
as you see, I'm still with the feather of Chief Frank. It's a responsibility and a privilege to be here. And Mathias, maybe you remember what Chief Frank said yesterday? We have to sit in a round, otherwise this doesn't happen. We have to simulate the round from this side, and the audience is simulating the round from the other side. Thank you very much, and welcome to a panel on the role of governance models we want to discuss here with leading experts, and I'm really having a pleasure and having you here again with me, and allowing us to reflect on your personal experience in your professions when it comes to what are the factors which are strengthening in governance sustainability. It's something we assume that if there's a government, they know how to govern, and the sustainability we heard in all the discussions, that's the new normal. We have to govern around sustainability. But is that really that easy? And that is a bit what in the next 45 minutes I wanted to dwell on with you and to dive a bit deeper, and I hope you have provocative thoughts. Well, Juan Jose, maybe I start with you, and I invite you to reflect on the perspectives of Guanajuato in the context of Mexico, and also indicating that you had a life before as an entrepreneur. So you know how governance worked from that side, and now in the public sector, there are other factors, but when you are interacting with those stakeholders, what would you share with the audience right now were elements which helped to introduce sustainability discussion points? Let's start with the discussion points. Discussion points into the dialogue with the public sector, with you as a responsible Secretary of Tourism, Minister of Tourism in Guanajuato.
Thank you very much, Dirk, and thank you very much to the UNWTO for giving me the opportunity to be here with you know, the experts on sustainability, and also to Mallorca to be the host of this seminar. For me, as you said, I have come into the public sector just recently, and recently is just a few years ago. I was an entrepreneur, and of course, sustainability had been there, but not really jumped into it. When I got into the Ministry of Tourism of Guanajuato, there was already a sustainable tourism program in place, well, at least on writing, but not necessarily taking actions into it. That gave us the opportunity to get immersion into the sustainability. And the first thing that we did was to try to understand what sustainability meant. Because most of us didn't know a thing. And being here, I understand that I know even less than what I thought that I knew when I was coming into Mallorca. And that has been, you know, a key point. Sergio was just saying that we keep on learning, and it's been great to hear all the panelists and all the talks that have been previously in the stage, because that allows me to broaden the scope of what we need to put together in order to bring it into just the scope of what we need to do to get the community, the private sector, the tourism, and overall to understand that if we don't know what it's all about, then we cannot take responsibility individually to then on the collective side go forward with it. I will have to say that I'm very pleased to see how the development of Guanajuato understanding the sustainability side of it from the government level is become. Because we do have that program that I mentioned. Now we have within the ministry, we have a sustainable policy, which means that all the 130 employees of that ministry, we have to push into sustainability measures. We need to push into consideration that every single action that we take into the tourism program have to involve sustainability. And the hard part is how we're going to get our sector to understand what's going on there. I mean, we have in Mexico, we have 32 states. Some of them are on the coastline. Some of them have a lot of large biodiversity. And some of them are taking some measures towards sustainability. We have this Tourism Ministry Association in Mexico, and the sustainability issue is there now. As a matter of fact, Guanajuato is a commissioner for, just to keep the management, the managing of all 32 states. And it is a big responsibility.
Okay, can I just, the point
Sure.
you wanted to make over there is that Guanajuato right now as a state, it's a federal, the configuration of Mexico is you have federal states, and
Exactly.
Guanajuato over there is right now cooperating at that level, so that we just get that right. Subnational level, you are
Subnational.
cooperating over there as ministries of tourism. I also witnessed the cooperation of the ministries of environment at subnational level, where you said you have right now the chair for the tourism.
That is correct.
For the tourism area. So you cooperate over there at the subnational level so that you think differently to that what is discussed at the federal level. Why are you cooperating at that level?
Well, I mean, it turned out that we were pretty much interested on getting there because we know that on tourism, the pillars of economic, social, and environment are key for our own business development. And we were not getting the response from the federal government. So when I got into office and I found that we had this program, but there was not much going on, and we began working on it, then we got to the point that we were not getting response. So then on the 32 ministers of tourism, we decided that it was very, very important. Of course, we're coming out of pandemic, and of course, a lot of things. I mean, the just slowing down gave us the opportunity to reflect and to introspective look on how we wanted to come out. And we knew that that was a key factor. Mexico being one of the biodiverse countries in the world, well, we had to do that. And the segment of nature tourism, adventure tourism, it's something that it's incredible, and we can take advantage of that in Mexico.
Good that we came to that cooperation at subnational level, Gracen. That was what we were discussing before, and that's why I'm very pleased to have you here, complementing the delegation of Canada or heading the delegation of Canada. But I think you arrived here at a very cooperative spirit, and I thank you very much for having joined Alan, Chief Frank, Glenn. Canada left also a very big footprint now in this discussion, and it has something to do. You are the Vice President of Destination Canada. When I started in UNWTO, I learned already so many things which were triggered in Canada. The indicators of sustainable tourism development were triggered back then by Canada in the discussions of UNWTO. So something we assume nowadays was simply the work of UNWTO, came from a member state back then and was pushing us to discuss that. Gracen, I have a very complicated question for you. Are you prepared for that one?
Well, you said lots of complicated things anyway.
Well,
it's a
yeah,
good start.
okay, no, but what we want to hear now in the room is from the Canadian perspective. You have a vast territory and not so many people in comparison to the size of other countries. Over there, participatory approaches, how do you manage that? We have heard right now from Tota, we know Yukon. There is even the proportion between land and people is even more challenging. How do you see over there good participatory approaches with the objective of sustainable governance?
So I'm just going to so first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad Ellen suggested me, and thank you for inviting me. So I'll start off with that. So just to give a level set of what it means to be Destination Canada, so that people have a concept of what we're talking about. So Destination Canada is a federal crown corp in the Federal Agency of Canada. And we have been a marketing and research organization for the last 40 years. So the concept of destination development from a tourism perspective is a new one. It's been as long as I've been in the organization, which is a year and a half, and that's how long Destination Canada has been in. However, our provinces and our territories have been doing this at different stages, different levels of development, at different levels of maturity for a really long time. I want to reiterate that our geography is the second largest landmass. We have only 37 million. Of most of them live at the southern border, and then they're really sparsely populated. We've got 3 levels of government. We've got federal, provincial, and municipal. And then we also have the indigenous governments that also govern our work. So the level of complexity of our ecosystem is quite extensive. Where I would say that we have really excelled, there are things at a policy level at a federal government that the Climate Environment Canada does, and we have the quality of life done by Statistics Canada. What I would say is really impressive is that you find urban centers and certain rural communities, and Tota, for example, who have leapfrogged this thing way further ahead than we have ever done before. And we at Destination Canada, what we're trying to do is not reinvent the wheel on these things, but all these better practices that are happening out there, we're creating a platform where we can showcase it. Does that kind of get to your answer?
Partly. Gracen, I just give you my my sub question over there. Yesterday, Chief Frank, when he explained his interactions with the 3 different levels, and he demonstrated that through the video, it was very impressive. And he said then later on in the conversation to me as well that when he as an indigenous leader is going to other countries where there is the relationship between indigenous and the authorities, then that he found that Canada is much more advanced. And that he did not limit that just to the subnational level. He impressed that for other levels as well. And if I take that as a proxy for satisfaction from the local level, which we very often try to engage as much as possible. Is this something you are aware that this is something you are leading, that this is functioning better? Is this something you think you can develop even further? Is this something where you think that Canada is unique?
So I'll give you a perspective. So prior to me joining Destination Canada, I actually spent 7 years at the city of Vancouver. So I actually worked in the municipal level. And I've also worked at the provincial level prior to that one. So one of the things you realize is that in certain aspects, we do work very closely together, but there are aspects of it which we were. So when I worked in the municipality, I didn't even know that there was a DMO in the Destination of Vancouver. It was just, they just spoke about different things. Interestingly, most of the things that the municipality did was in service of both the residents and the visitors. They just don't consider the visitor a client group. It was just not something that we talked about. It was only when I came to tourism that I realized, oh, right, there's this whole connection and they should be speaking to each other. There are certain municipalities that do it really well. For example, Tota does it very well. Montreal does it very well. Toronto does it very well. It's a much more integrated system where the municipality, Edmonton does it really well because they're actually part of the municipality. They're a department with it. So it's not homogeneous across the country. So it's very hard to put a blanket statement to say that, is it all working well everywhere? No, there are some places that are doing it exceptionally well, and there are some places that are much more in its infancy.
Thank you, Gracen. Mathias, this is right now the the statement then opening the questions to you. When we discussed before the Austrian perspective, also a well-developed tourism destination, a different product to Mallorca. Most of us have seen that in Austria, you have a very long tradition of winter tourism, but also a strong summer tourism component, especially during the COVID times. That was very much in demand, and you performed extraordinary. There were some countries during COVID times which had actually a very positive uptake of domestic tourism or tourism which came from neighboring countries, normally traveling from much farther away. And I asked you back then whether my impressions of Austria destination management were true, and you enlightened me and you said, no, there are factors which are really working well. So right now, these factors working well in participatory approaches of Austria, how would you start explaining why do they work well? And why would you then argue the argument, and I'm confident that they help us to contribute to a sustainability dimension in governance, which is right now helping us implementing sustainability regularly in these destinations?
Very nice question. Nice to be here today. It's a cool congress and a very important topic. And Austria is compared to Mexico and Canada, a small country, but with a big intensive tourism with a lot of overnight stays. And you say that Dirk, it's a traditional holiday country. And maybe that's the reason why some processes are already there, because Austria lives from family-owned businesses. There are no big companies, no big industry. Nearly 95% of all the tourism offers are family-owned. So small hotels, small apartments, cable car companies are also family-owned. And so they have the aim. They would like to save energy, because if they save energy, they save money. And over the 20 years ago, they had a lot of processes taken into account. Before that word sustainability was already there. It was always to be to save the nature, because the nature is our product and we have to save our product. In the meanwhile, after COVID, after the whole crisis of the energy levels or economic crisis a little bit, we have to push it more. And maybe here Austria has an effect that we have a traditional country, we have good governance, we have with Austria, we have the provinces, 9 provinces, and we have about 100 destinations, DMOs, and I'm the director of Schladming-Dachstein. It's one of the 3 biggest destinations in Austria, and I'm also the president of the Austrian tourism managers, which is the destination network of all the DMOs. And we see that there are a lot of pioneers already there who build new processes, build new things to save energy, to be sustainable, to try things like cable car companies you spoke it on. They use since 10 years only energy from renewable energy, but nobody knows. So they pay more for the energy, because renewable energy is more expensive than normal energy, and they use it. Another example, the cable car companies, they use in the meanwhile, they're testing the new HVO diesel, which is a organic fuel, which has 90% less CO2 emissions for the snow groomers. And it's a process to fulfill the sustainability, to be also ecological sustainable, because the social sustainability and economic sustainability is already there. Because if you see in a destination like Schladming, we have about 30,000 inhabitants and 30,000 guest beds, 3.8 million overnight stays, and nearly 80% of all of the economic scale is independent from the tourism. So if there's no tourism, the economic scale is away, and also the social part is difficult, because you cannot live there anymore. So we have arranged the whole destination, and this is also the change from the work as a DMO, because 10 years ago we were a destination marketing organization. In the meanwhile, we are a destination management organization, and nearly 50% of our work is the living space management, to make a triangle for the tourism industry, hotels, cable cars, ski schools, and so on. The guests, for sure, the most important, because if they are not there, we cannot make business anymore, and the inhabitants. And that's new. 10 years ago, it was only 2 parts, and now we have 3. And I think it's the right decision because we need to make it for everybody good. And then you can be successful in the future.
That is very interesting, connecting to the discussions in the other panels. I think many interfaces, we were discussing the role of DMOs in general. We were discussing then the role of nature-related data for enterprises. We were discussing the demand the private sector might have to those authorities, the public sector. Right now, when it comes to sustainability and governance, we have at least 2 ways how information is flowing usually to those who are making policies. And one information, Juan Jose, is what I was impressed by Guanajuato, the way how you collected data, disseminated data, and just did not do that in the way that you asked somebody to produce this data. When I came and learned about the observatory from Guanajuato, I was impressed that you were operating over there a website where the policy objectives were stated, and below the policy objectives of the government, you were putting over there the data sources, which showed the progress towards the policy objectives you have made. And you didn't stop over there. You published below over there the name of the person responsible for the statistics you are displaying over there, and even the contact details of this person. So then somebody who was not in agreement with that could over there reach out and seek information or clarification. That is one way how information can travel up. And another way is that you are interacting with your stakeholders, with those stakeholders of tourism and others. And right now, my question to you as the panel would be, which of these 2 sources are more relevant? Which of the approaches you have found in your personal experiences working on those issues which are sustainability? Juan Jose, maybe you want to start.
Sure. Well, yeah, most definitely the observatory has been a great tool for, making decisions at state level, the ministry level. And I guess that it has to do a lot of what is that interaction with the private sector. And I will have to say and admit that the private sector in Guanajuato has not been that up forward as we would like. So in order to compensate that, what we've done is what you just described. I mean, we're here, we're gonna get the information, and we're gonna sort it out, and we'll give it to you. And the advancements that we have had at the observatory level is that we're not just doing the general information or the general indicators for tourism. Now we have evolved into getting we have basically 9 segments for tourism that we feel that Guanajuato is known and looked for by visitors and tourism. So we have sort of taken each one of them and do the surveys and do the focus groups and get all the information from the academy and from international organization as well, so that we can provide with the specific information for each one of those segments and the businesses or persons related into it. That has allowed us to just go into very specific campaigns also on promotion, but also organized what is the tourism products that we have in order to serve those interests and then become experiences. And that is where the building of skills it comes in a very, very keen way. Now, going back to the question is, since we don't have that response from our tourism community, what we need to do is to push them by giving them information and making sure that they constantly are related to it. Of course, it's a hard task because we cannot go babysitting all the all the businesses they are there. And by the way, we have 93% of SMEs within the tourism sector. So corporations are there in Guanajuato, but they're not that big, as we heard in the stage yesterday, Gloria from Iberostar and so on. So that is a hard task to achieve, but we believe and we know that we'll get there, but by making sure that you know, the networking that we are getting here with a lot of you there are in this seminar will help Guanajuato to deliver the message, because we also need the message to come from abroad. If Juan Jose comes and tells them, well, he's the Ministry of Tourism, he's just wanted to say whatever he wants to say. So that's the sort of network that we're building up, so that we get them to understand what is going on. And I think that the hard part is to realize that sustainability is part of their business, and if we want to keep on going through time, well, it has to be considered as a key point of it.
It was something Alexa mentioned in the previous panel. There is right now a changing, transforming transparency, reporting, monitoring need, which large enterprises see already. We witnessed that last year at the Convention on Biological Diversity, how large corporations are already preparing for this reporting. We wanted to bring this message here to the tourism sector, because some of these pressures, you see them, but at the same time, you notice that maybe because of their size, the tourism actors we are dealing very often with don't feel these reporting pressures so far. They are not only obligations. We also heard at the beginning of this conference that financing in the future will very often differentiate by whether you are operating over there in a greener, nature positive manner or not. And then you will feel that not only as a cost for the purchases, but the cost of your financing. But it was interesting right now how the sector is incentivized in Guanajuato. And I jumped to Mathias to hear in Austria, how is it you feel that from your perspective? Is the sector in Austria over there more prepared to talk to you through data, or is it that you are talking to them as stakeholders in established fora?
I would say that the second part, because in Austria we have a good law, we have a tourism law, that in the areas, every company from hotels, apartments, still to the supermarkets, doctors, and every business has to be part in a destination management organization. So they are part in it, they pay for it, and so they can decide with us. So we have a strong network, we reach every company, and we can talk to them easier but we have to push it for sure, but nobody is here because we have very small structure to push the sustainability. Here, maybe in my case, it's easier because you have big companies, big hotel chains. They have their laws, their rules, and they can make the reporting things, the issues, because for the small family-owned businesses, that's a real challenge. And I think you have to convince them and push them in an emotional way to bring these companies and businesses to make more sustainability. And I think we can be very successful because Sergio said it before, don't wait for the perfect spot. You need to start. Yeah, and you can do a lot of things. There are a lot of low-hanging fruits you can use, and you can show it's not so hard and it looks like, and it need not to be hard. It has to be easy. And I think that's the point. Sustainability can grow in the next years very fast. And it has to, because we need tourism needs a good sustainability image, because the reputation at the moment is not the best, mainly above of the arrival to the destination. The destinations and the hotels itself are normally very good in sustainability, and maybe that's also a problem in the public reputation. We also have to talk that the tourism sometimes, maybe in Austria especially at the moment, above the winter and the snowmaking capabilities, the tourism has sometimes a very bad reputation, but it's better than the reputation. And if we had this year in Austria a talk, and the Federal Agency of Environmental Care, the Umweltbundesamt, say that tourism is a positive example for good sustainable progress. They are progressive, not backwards, and that's the problem. Maybe also between the reputation in the world or in the land compared to the companies and to the industry. So there may be a lack.
But Mathias, at the same time, Juan Jose reported then you know, sometimes you have then these barriers and then you are getting stuck. We heard that here several times in the panels. Yesterday, Petra was making the same statement and said, look, there, you remember that I said there are headwinds which are blowing into the face of DMOs, which are leading that. It's not an easy way, and most of the people here in the audience will confirm that leading sustainability at destination level is not an easy task. What we are discussing here might look nice on a picture, nice to be summarized, but when you talk in private to a destination manager, he will say, you have to be a certain character for this business. Yeah. And that is something we should not forget. And so, yes, tourism is leading, but is carrying also responsibilities we see, which are significantly larger than responsibilities of tourism. If you just represent a sector and you want to make sure that this sector is having economic success, that is easy. But if a DMO is right now pushed into this other position and is leading over their discussions, which I had, and that's what I think right now here out of a lot of panels, tourism is leading this discussion. That is not an easy task. And here, Gracen, with that, I'm introducing this to you. You are in a leadership function in Destination Canada. If you right now reflect on that, what can we do from your leadership function to help destinations fulfill this role? Is there something we can do to help destinations to fulfill this role, knowing that they are having to face a lot of headwinds? How can we strengthen them?
So I'd say one of the things that Canada's done many things, but one of the things that Canada has done really well in the world of tourism is we have something called the North Star Partners, and that is a representation of DMOs from across the provinces and about several of the big DMOs. So there are about 50 representatives, and that group meets at least 5 to 6 times a year. In a very organized, there's a methodology, there's an agenda, they bring their priorities together. So it's very, and I would say in the last couple of them, we've come up with 7 specific priorities that we're going to work on. So there's so many things, so many headwinds, but these are the 7. One of the things that also came out of the pandemic was a lot of the DMOs are funded by the hotel tax. And the minute there was no money coming in, the budgets dropped. And the thing that came through for the members of those DMOs, which are a lot of the hotels and accommodation restaurants and all that, was that the ascendance of community, that you couldn't do it alone, that you have to work, that social license to operate, that you have to work with. And so that sometimes, opportunity in a crisis, they really opened up the door on how to engage communities at a much broader level. So that is front and center. It is not only was it a need, it became an expectation of community that they would work together. So that's how the North Star group works. And I think they work really well. Interestingly, as time has moved on and they've matured as a group, they've come together and put aside some of their differences. They're less competitive with each other because each province markets themselves, but they've been able to move past that point. 2 other initiatives that I think would be valuable for us to hear is there's something called the Canadian Tourism Data Collective. And that is we're doing the data architecture around that, is creating a central intelligence of trusted source of intelligence data. And the goal is at some point in time, it will be able to absorb data from the community, but also be able to push. So it becomes an interface that goes back and forth rather than, preaching, but it's also being absorbed. So that would be another one. And the third one, which my business unit is leading, which is very exciting as well, is a GIS map for the entire country. To layer all the data layers that we have, green, gray, orange assets across the country. What is the infrastructure? But at some point in time, the goal is to see that where is the potential, where is good community engagement happening And are we creating an opportunity for those communities to have access to investments that they would normally not have? So we're beginning to see a really solid coordination of the country happening at marketing, data, and at a development level. And we're also beginning to see the interwovenness across that. So there's vertical lines, but also happening. So and a lot of it came out because of the pandemic, that we would never have gotten along as well as we have, or puts aside our differences. But these platforms, an organized set of meetings that come together with proper agendas and specific priorities. So you're not talking about like every 100 problem, there'll be like, we have childcare problems, we have housing problems. We picked 7. These are the 7 we're all going to work on. We're hoping that we can do these 7 things in 7 years. So 2030 is the plan, and those are the things we're working on. So it's like, revenue, brand resonance, investment, sustainability, social license to operate. Like, so they're very specific, and we're going to have groups. We're going to bring people from not just the DMOs, but there are people going to be from the hotel sector, the investment sector, the community sector, elected officials. So like we elect the people. These are the people who speak to us. So just broadening the stakeholder engagement, but also creating a level of resilience within the way we do the work. So I would say, when you ask the question, is it going to be a data thing or is it going to be stakeholder? For Canada, it's going to be both. There's no way we can do it one without the other.
That is a very, very nice statement, and a statement which is echoing what we very often see. At the same time, I like that you pointed out at the pandemic as a catalyst, as a crisis, as an opportunity, and that many destinations over there learned. I mentioned before how Austria learned that all of a sudden and there was a lot of demand during the summer as well, like extraordinary demand for the product. And at the same time, Gracen, you mentioned something else which connected me then to Juan Jose, where you pointed out that there are sometimes you look then for things which are working somewhere else to refer to them, to connect to them. And that is something we were factoring into the conference here as well, because we realized that this is something besides the format of the conference, which is extremely helpful. We call that action frameworks. And what we very often saw, Juan Jose, the Glasgow Declaration, to which you signed up as a destination, in there you feel that there is something on a very specific line of action and an objective, and the cooperation which is sitting behind, which helps you then to go back to the stakeholders and tell them there are others out there which are committing along this objective as destinations and as companies, and that helps you to deliver then a message of engagement, but at the same time to cooperate also on capacity building, data, and moving ahead, not alone.
Yeah, most definitely. As you witnessed last year, we held the Social and Sustainable Summit at León, at the largest city in Guanajuato, and that brought a lot of the key actors on sustainability and social work into Guanajuato. This year it's coming again, and of course we expect you to be there, because the message has to be continuously delivered. And what we're doing at this moment is we're making a program, webinars, a talks, some way that we get the key facts about sustainability there, so that people from Guanajuato understand what is coming into that summit and takes advantage of all these the worldwide actors are going to be talking to each other, but at the same time getting that message there. We hope that by then we'll just wake up their senses, and they begin getting more action into what we're doing, what we would expect doing in the short term. And that also is bringing some of the other states into the summit, so that we all together with this coordination that we have we have the task of doing, then we will get it there. But most definitely by hearing from somebody else that it's happening, as we just heard in this And this yesterday and today, I mean, we have gone through all the key issues regarding sustainability, as you have already mentioned them. And we certainly hope that by doing that, we're gonna be at least the Guanajuato sector, the tourism sector is gonna stand up and just participate in a more active way. And you mentioned we have this collaboration with the Environment Agency of Guanajuato, and somehow we're putting some efforts on some programs so that mitigation actions are taking place, not only by saying it, but also investing into it from the tourism sector.
Juan Jose, Mathias, Gracen, thank you so much for being here with me on stage. And while we just had 45 minutes of conversation with each of you, I spoke longer than an hour in preparation. We exchanged a lot on the different thoughts we wanted to and dive deeper here today. I think what I will add as a closing remark here is that governance and sustainability also, for those who are performing it and who are leading that, benefit from joining a summit like that, because you get over here reconfirmation for some of the doubts you have, and you can take them back to the stakeholders and to transport over there a message. That is not something we are just doing here, or it is something we are doing here and others said it's the right way how we are doing that. We haven't found the final formula for perfect governance on sustainability and tourism, but we are very conscious that tourism is an elite function, and we are continuing this discussion for sure next year, same place. And I thank you very much for having joined the stage with me. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed our conversation here on stage.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear Glaesser. Thank you to all the panelists. We
Yes.
enjoyed this panel discussion, of course. Thank you so much. And we're having now the coffee break, 20 minutes. They told me that in 20 minutes, please, we come back because we have a long agenda. So thank you so much. Nos vemos en 20 minutitos. En 20 minuts comencem una altra vegada amb la següent panel discussion. Gràcies.
And the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy's rich, and your ma is good looking. Hush, little baby, don't you cry.
And told the hey, I was nowhere in sight. The church bells rang. Never was the kind of house was stole. Gonna roll out the wind before I get old. It is the night. My body's weak. I'm on the run. No time to sleep. I got to ride like the wind to be free again. And I got such a long way to go, such a long way to go. Oh, Mexico, like the way, and I got a way to go to the border of Mexico, like the way, like the way. Yeah.
I got my first real 6-string, bought it at 5 and died. Play it till my fingers bled. Was the summer of 69. Me and some guys from school had a band and we tried real hard. Jimmy Queen.
Hola, una otra cop. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estáis? Espero que hayáis disfrutado del coffee break. I hope you've enjoyed the coffee break and welcome back. A quick reminder for those who want to contribute to spreading the debate these days on social networks. We have a hashtag, which is SD Summit 2023. And before going to the next panel session, I was just in the coffee break, I just was speaking with Ms. Oritza Urosevic, and we were like saying, wow, in this second edition, we have so many nationalities. Like last year we did, but it was like Mexico, Canada, Italy, Germany, all over the world. So it's like, I don't know if you were here all yesterday. You were not here yesterday. Well, some of you, yes. And we had Mr. Pedro Duque, the first Spanish astronaut. And he was like telling us, well, when we go to space, the first thing we go and look to the planet Earth is like, where is our village? Then where is our country? Then where is like the whole planet Earth? So it's good to know that this second edition is like like as a whole, all of us. So let's continue with the next panel session. Action frameworks are needed to trigger and guide the necessary acceleration towards sustainable consumption and production patterns, and they help to bring and to build the needed synergies to support the transformation process through pooled research, guidance, and networking to be successful. Their catalytic function triggers impact on a larger scale, which is urgently needed to make the tourism sector more sustainable and also resilient. We have our next panel session, which is going to be moderated by Ms. Virginia Fernandez-Trapa, Coordinator Sustainable Development of Tourism, UNWTO, and she will be joined on stage by Mr. José Juan Lorenzo Rodríguez, Executive Director, Turismo de Islas Canarias, Mr. Jorge Laguna Celis, Head One Planet Network UN Framework of Programs on Sustainable Consumption and Production, 10 YFP UN Environment Program. Also, we have Ms. Samantha Kenny, Senior Program Officer, Food Waste World Wildlife Fund, Mr. Tono Franco, Managing Partner of Global DIT Spain. We also have with us Mr. Guis Dan Bunen, Head Travel Sustainable Program Booking.com, and Mr. Wasim Daud, Head of Sustainability and CSR Ponan GTPI. Many people on stage now. So please give a warm applause to all of them. And you can go that way, yes. And go ahead also, our moderator, Ms. Virginia Fernandez-Trapa. Ahí estás, muy bien rodeada, te veo. Thank you so much, and all yours. And please enjoy the panel session.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and have the honor to moderate this panel. I really like to thank the Consell de Mallorca for the invitation, my colleagues for all the support in preparing, and of course my fellow panelists. I'm really honored to have such an amazing lineup of speakers here with me. Actually, the United Nations is in the panel. We have public sector in the panel, private sector, civil society. So we are a diverse panel, so to speak. diverse, but we share a common objective, the objective to accelerate the transformation of the tourism sector towards more sustainability and resilience. So last night, following the lead of Professor McCurry, what I did was to ask OpenAI and GPT, sorry, about action frameworks. Actually, I was curious to see if it would understand it the same way that we do. And that's the reply that I got. An action framework for sustainability refers to a structured, goal-oriented approach designed to guide individuals, organizations, or governments in the development and implementation of sustainable practices, policies, and strategies. So I guess the chat is right. That is exactly the purpose of the action frameworks that we are leading within the framework of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program, and that I have the pleasure to coordinate. All of those frameworks will be part of our discussion today, in addition to other amazing initiatives that our colleagues are implementing. So action frameworks, we've heard it. Dirk also introduced it in the panel just now. They are key to address complex issues. And sustainability is clearly a complex issue, and it is context sensitive, and as Jesus put it earlier, interdependent. So our discussion will focus on sustainable consumption and production. That's a very broad concept, as you all know, but which ultimately focuses on decoupling tourism growth from environmental degradation. So exactly what we really wish to accelerate by translating it into concrete actions. We will have a first round where our colleagues will let you know what action frameworks they are using and how those are helping them. And in the second round, we have tried to, let's say, reflect on how those action frameworks can actually trigger additional effects at the destination level. So let's get to it. Oh yeah, and please remember this is a bilingual panel. In case you need the device, there will be some conversation in Spanish and English. So I'll start with Jorge. My first question is for you, Jorge. Jorge Laguna, he's the head of the One Planet Network Secretariat in UNEP. The One Planet Network, I guess, is an action framework on its own, a very broad one with different branches or programs. And it has the mandate to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 12 on sustainable consumption and production, and other connected goals like the one on climate or the ones on protecting terrestrial and marine ecosystems. So Jorge, what does that mean to be an implementation mechanism of SDG 12 from a UN perspective, and how is the program structured? Which themes are we working on, and what's the tourism program? What's the role of tourism in the whole network?
Muchísimas gracias, Virginia, y voy a empezar con unas palabras en español porque estoy tan contento de estar aquí hoy en Mallorca con ustedes. En primer lugar, quiero agradecer a la Fundación de Mallorca, al Mallorca Tourism Observatory, establecido en asociación con UNWTO, la Agencia de Naciones Unidas, que tiene el mandato de promover un mejor turismo. Estoy verdaderamente contento de estar aquí con ustedes hoy. La manera de contestar tu pregunta, y ahora voy a pasar en inglés, quizás para que nos puedan escuchar las personas que están conectadas. It's by telling a small story, right? And that will help you perhaps understand what we do as One Planet Network and how we help deliver change. Yesterday, I have been enjoying this wonderful strip where you can do a great run and you can see families enjoying this community with the sea, but also you can see businesses that are there providing services. And in the little jog that I did, about 3 kilometers, especially in a very important day for the United Nations, yesterday was the first Zero Waste Day. And I have to say that I was incredibly impressed to see here that I only identified one single-use plastic cup straight from a bin repository. How is that possible? How that change happened? Is it because culture? Is it because leadership? Is it because of regulation? What we have seen, it is that change is possible. And I was very much impressed, and I have to say and pay tribute to the wonderful engagement here of 3 major actors. And when we speak about the One Planet Network, we will touch upon these 3 major actors. First and foremost is the individuals. Many people think that problems in this world, especially those, as Virginia mentioned, associated to sustainable consumption and production, are too big for us. We believe on the contrary. We think that perhaps we cannot change the world, we can change our world. We are responsible for our behaviors, we are responsible for our choices, provided that those choices are made available. But we have a role to play. Second, the companies that we work for, the businesses that are providing services have a role to play. Third and foremost, the authorities that provide the legislative and operating framework have to talk to one another. We play an important role as being the United Nations mechanism to implement sustainable consumption and production. But we don't do that alone. Why? Because these challenges need collective solutions. For example, we are a network of 10,000 individuals that have the knowledge and the capacity to create a global movement for sustainable consumption and production. We hold 6 global programs that addresses the key areas of sustainability. I would say the core to it is sustainable tourism, and we are pleased to partner with UNWTO and a number of countries such as the government of Spain and the government of France, and over 1,000 partners that lead this initiative. Additionally, we work on sustainable public procurement, sustainable food systems, lifestyles and education, built environment. These are what we call high impact sectors and enablers for change. Just to finalize the question on implementation, we believe that there are 4 key points that I think are common to all our endeavors. The first one is to position sustainable consumption and production. You can call it circularity, circular approaches at the heart of our fight to tackle climate, pollution, and nature crises, but also the social crisis of providing fair and equal employment. You heard it in the opening of this conference when the president of Mallorca came and spoke about circularity so many times. It is key. The second one, it is to enable change. How do you enable change? We will learn about it today, so I won't speak a lot about it now. The third one is to ensure that no one is left behind. There are a number of representatives here that are coming from countries that require support and that require frameworks, that require learning these experiences, that require opportunities, but also within our societies, there are parts of our societies that should not be left behind. Last and not least, it goes back to that point of we all have a role to play. We have to create a global movement. No one is too small to make a change. The 3 factors that I constantly advocate is rethink the way you do things. Once you rethink, change and act. Once you act, inspire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorge. And it's actually a pleasure to announce that the tourism sector has been identified as a high impact sector in the Global Strategy for Sustainable Consumption and Production 2023-2030, which of course provides solid grounds for our sector to continue advancing in this direction with support from environment. I'm going to, let's hear now from our one long-time partner of One Planet, which is Booking.com, our second speaker. Kees Jan Boenen is the head of the Travel Sustainable program at Booking.com. This program you may have seen was launched a year and a half ago, and it promotes sustainable travel and connecting travelers with more eco-friendly accommodations and experiences. These are the leaves that you see now in Booking platform. So, Kees, can you tell us a bit, let's say, how that program works? What is behind it? How has been the uptake with your businesses? Are the properties loving it? Tell us a bit how it works, please.
Yeah, happy to. And thanks for the invitation, and very happy to represent Booking here at this platform. So before we get into the detail of how the program works, I would like to set a little bit of context here, because when Booking.com developed the program, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We looked around and we looked at how are accommodations recognized for their sustainability efforts, and how can they communicate that to consumers? So that was through official certification programs. But then we looked, okay, how much certifications do we have on our platform as accommodations? And that was less than 0.5%. So there was a huge overwhelming majority of accommodations that were not recognized for their sustainability efforts and were not able to communicate with the consumers. So that's exactly then what we did. We developed a program that really looks at where are accommodations in their sustainability journey, and how can we recognize accommodations that have taken significant steps, but are not, for some reason, part of a certification program on our platform. I think, secondly, it's really important to understand where we are with the program. As Virginia rightly mentioned, it's only 18 months old. We don't have all the answers yet. We're learning, we're collecting data, we're improving the program. And where we are now is really building this sustainable supply. Because in the future, and we strongly believe that, consumers will look for more sustainable places. We have to be ready, and we have to make sure we have that supply in place when they come to our platform. I think thirdly, obviously we cannot do this alone. So we have worked in the development of the program with GSTC, with Glenn and his organization, SHA, and with Travelist and our partners. Travelist, you might know, is a pre-competitive platform, and together with competitors that are also a member of this coalition, we try to scale and implement this program throughout the industry. How does our program work? So what we have done, we have identified 29 questions that look at 5 topics: renewable energy, food waste, water stewardship, engaging with local communities, and environment. So based on these 29 questions, which follow a life cycle assessment, really focusing on high impact, but also what is in the sphere of influence of an accommodation. So they can start almost directly with this program. So those 29 questions we share with our partners, we make them aware of it, we promote it, and with the data and the answers we get back, we highlight the attributes or sustainability actions taken already by an accommodation. And if they reach a certain threshold, you will recognize them for their sustainability efforts with the levels you saw yesterday on the screen. So level 1, 2, or 3, or if they're part of a certification, we recognize that as such. So the goal again was really to provide the more conscious consumer with credible, transparent, and easy to understand information that if they would like to travel in a more sustainable way, they can do so. So the uptake, we have seen a very largely positive response from our partners. The program started 18 months ago. We have now 1.3 million partners sharing data with us, which means they filled out 1 or more questions. Out of this 1.3 million accommodations, almost 500 are recognized for their sustainability efforts, which again shows the point that even for our program, which is not a certification program, there are 800 partners that are currently not meeting the threshold to become recognized. And I think this is something to very much keep in mind, because if we want to accelerate the industry to become more sustainable, we have to understand where they are, and they're not at certification level. A lot of properties are starting their journey. So we really need to provide the framework, the tools, the knowledge, and the confidence to start sharing what they're doing. And this is something maybe to conclude with, is we're not a certification program. We're really trying to bridge that gap from accommodations that are just starting all the way to bring them to the doorstep of official certification.
Thank you so much, Kees. Amazing private sector-led action framework, which works hand in hand with what we do in One Planet, and really with your outreach capacity. I think we all of us see clearly a lot of potential there. You mentioned waste being one of the aspects that you are looking at as part of the criteria, and that brings me to our next speaker. Waste is a very relevant issue in general, of course, but also if we want to talk about circularity as waste is, for which waste is a resource. So our next speaker is Samantha Kenny. She is Senior Program Officer in the World Wildlife Fund, excuse me, and she manages partnerships and pre-competitive work streams engaging in global food service and the tourism sector. So Sam, why did WWF decide to focus on tourism? Because I mean, we know WWF, but maybe it's not that common to know that WWF was interested in tourism. What are the implications between food waste and tourism, and what initiatives have you supported or advanced?
Thank you so much, Virginia. It's really a privilege to be here among such esteemed destinations and stakeholders from around the world. It's really been inspiring, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. So, World Wildlife Fund, we're a global conservation organization, and we work on, you might be really familiar with our work preserving wildlife species or addressing climate change. We work to secure systems for people, for the benefit of people and nature. And of course, a lot of these topics are really relevant to the discussions we've been having over the past 2 days. One of the newer practices within WWF is their food practice, and it's a body of work that represents sustainable production of food, sustainable consumption of food, and food loss and waste, which is my specialty. So when I came onto the team about 7 years ago, WWF had already been working on topics of food waste, and that's because of the really outsized impact that the production of food has on systems and nature around the world. The production of food uses more resources than any other system. It uses more energy, water, wildlife habitat, chemicals than any other production. And then we ship it all around the world to have the globalized food system, the amazing meals we've had even now on this trip. So WWF had been working in food systems all over the world. It maybe just hadn't been stated as such. So when we came to the table, we were looking at some of the first systemic data on food waste and where it was happening in our systems. We were looking first at the US. So I'm based originally in Washington, DC, and we are thinking from a US perspective on how we can most strategically address food waste for benefits of people and nature. And we looked at the reporting and we saw the breakdown and we said, okay, about 40% of food waste is coming out of consumer-facing businesses. This is an area where WWF has significant positioning to work with public and private sectors, civil society, to really change the way that businesses are approaching food sustainability, food procurement, food production, and absolutely disposal of organic waste as well. When we were thinking about where to start with consumer-facing businesses, we started with hotels, and the reason was very direct for us. Hotels employ a critical mass of food service workers, and they serve a critical mass of diners around the world. And it was the quickest way we could start to understand how food service could be transformed to be less extractive and less damaging. So we invited together, it was 7 years ago, we invited together with the American Hotel and Lodging Association and Hilton Hotels. We sat in the room with 5 large multinational hotel brands, Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott, IHG, and Accor. And we started to discuss what does it look like to address food waste systemically in hotels, hospitality systems. And what was born out of that was pilots across the country, which were testing out key drivers and solutions to food waste in the hotel context. After those pilots, we went to work writing a toolkit, and you can find that at hotelkitchen.org. It's now become a larger suite of resources, and that included guidance on food procurement, staff training, consumer engagement, menu design, how to serve a buffet that doesn't produce 50%, waste 50% of the procured food or something like this. And then also with a top priority on preventing food waste, but also with the understanding that very often in these complex systems, we can't avoid all food waste. So also how do topics of food loss and waste connect with topics of food security, food donation systems, and then also critically food waste diversion, keeping food waste out of landfills and incinerators. In landfills, food waste becomes methane, just like other organic waste, and it's actually one of the key drivers of climate change today, and one that we can definitely address. So once we put this out to the sector, we saw quickly adoption in the States, but immediately the tourism sector is not one that stops at borders. The brands that were rolling this out at their properties and with their teams had operations all around the world, and we needed this platform to be appropriate for that scale of operations. So we immediately set to work scaling to key tourism sectors around the world, in Brazil, Victoria Falls, throughout China, a national program in Pakistan, and many others. And today we actually host these resources really at the global level to say these are the universal tenets of how you're going to be addressing food waste in hotels. And we were able to dig in that way. Since then, others have hotels aren't the only ones producing food, so others have knocked on our door. We created the 86 Food Waste Toolkit for restaurants, and we also work in partnership, one-to-one corporate partnership, and also pre-competitive engagements to bring along hotels, restaurants, cruise ships, commercial catering, to really change the way that they're procuring and serving food. And today we're in the business of scaling up, out, and deep. And we see these concepts formalized now in the UN One Planet Global Tourism Food Waste Roadmap, which I'll speak a little bit more about in a bit. But critically, we're seeing these concepts scaled through brands, through the best, not business as usual, but business at its best, and really seeing the way that their guests and their customers are really demanding that they act. And very critically, we're seeing these initiatives rolled out at the destination level. And really, we say destinations, we mean communities. The hotels and tourism businesses are not at all in isolation. We've discussed this several times today. Next to a hotel is a school, is a supermarket, and is the place where people were born and live. And these are the lives that we share with each other, and we're really all sitting around a global table. And this work, we eat together here at a global forum, and then you go home and we're still at a global forum in the way that we are sitting in our interconnected systems there too.
Thank you so much, Sam. It was great to have your contributions to develop the global roadmap for food waste reduction in tourism that, as Sam mentioned, is a One Planet UNWTO publication. It's the new, let's say, the newcomer, the new action framework in the network that we wish to implement jointly with many of you under the motto of prevent, redistribute, and circulate. So that food waste is minimized and what is left is prevented, or let's say, sorry, diverted from landfill, which is basically where circularity also lies. And circularity, as you all know, is a very powerful strategy for climate action. And this leads me to our next panelist, Jose Juan Lorenzo. He's the Executive Director of Turismo de Islas Canarias, and he's leading his organization's strategic change towards a more competitive and resilient tourism. And I think it's really commendable to see how that strategic change has placed climate action really high in the agenda. We are proud to have Canarias as one of the signatories of the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism. This declaration asks for signatories to support decarbonization goals, to achieve net zero by 2050, and also to take into account regenerative approaches, connecting with the nexus that was mentioned in the first panel of the morning between climate and biodiversity. So, Jose Juan, can you tell us a bit how did you develop your first climate plan? What process did you follow? Was the Glasgow Declaration useful in some ways, and how is the plan structured?
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you to WTO y al Consell de Mallorca for this invitation. From the beginning of the COVID pandemic in 2020, it was clear to us that strategy of the Canary Island destination have to undergo to a complete review. That among other key aspects, we allow us to face the climate emergency. For this, in March 2021, we launched the Canary Island Destination Strategy 2022-2024, which include among its three main objectives, the advancement in the decarbonization of our tourist activity. To meet the challenge of decarbonization of our economy, the key is to measure and the target is to reduce. And this only can be achieved through the commitment and individual effort of each of the destination stakeholders. But success will only be achieved if the move is collective, massive, global, measurable, communicated, paced, and ensure well orchestrated. How can we ensure that each individual stakeholder, and especially small and medium-sized enterprise, can measure and reduce their own carbon footprint, and at the same time, be able to measure the progress of the whole destination? First, providing the required carbon footprint measurement solution, one which is adapted to their specific activity, which is easily understandable, and which is considering that is a long-term endeavor, giving the necessary support along the road, monitoring and communicating all the time what the individual and the destination target progress is, from a single centralized cloud solution based on science and international protocol, and all at zero cost to businesses. For that reason, in 2021, we began to develop the methodology and the application that from the destination platform will allow us to manage the decarbonization of the destination. In November 2021, when the Glasgow Declaration was launching, we saw ourselves fully aligned with it. Glasgow provides us with an overreaching framework, which helps us to accelerate and facilitate the engagement of all the stakeholders, and at the same time provide us a clear guide to do the action plan. Therefore, last October 2022, the Seven Island Council, the Professional Association, and a large number of companies endorsed the Glasgow Declaration, and at the same time, approached the Canary Island Destination Climate Action Master Plan. Our implementation plan has achieved the following steps. We have estimated the carbon footprint of the Canary Island destination in 2019 base year, 1.85 million tons CO2 equivalent in destination activities, 5.3 million tons CO2 equivalent in air connectivity. We have conducting a pilot with 35 companies to test the understanding of the solution, launch a digital destination platform which has at its first objective to accelerate the decarbonization of the destination with the solution, the travel to decarbonization, adhering the whole of the Canary Island destination to Glasgow Declaration, and simultaneously presenting the Canary Island Action Plan. And now we are at the point where next month, April, we fully finally launch our onboarding plan for the destination business, carry out jointly by the DMOs and all the tourist associations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Juan, for the effort and also for your willingness to always share the experience. We know for destinations it's a bit daunting to embark on a climate action plan, and there's also not a single recipe that works for every destination. So once more, the only way is collaboration and sharing. So thank you for that. So we've touched upon the global roadmap for food waste reduction in tourism, the Glasgow Declaration on climate action in tourism, and we have a third action framework running under the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program, which is the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. I'm very happy to introduce you to Wasim Daoud. He's the head of sustainability and corporate social responsibility at Ponant. Ponant is a French company with 13 luxury cruises that has been operating for more than 30 years. Wasim, Ponant is a signatory of the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative, and you are driving actions that are connect to the elimination of single-use plastics, integrating reuse models, and collaborating with suppliers and waste managers, which basically are the commitments that the initiative is asking from signatories, the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. So what motivated you? Why is plastic pollution and tackling plastic pollution so important for Ponant? And what are the solutions that you have implemented on boat and at port?
Thank you, Virginia. Good morning, everybody, and buenos dias. I'm very happy to participate to this nice event. Let me introduce briefly our company. Ponant, as you said, is a French cruise company, luxury company. We have only 13 small ships. The maximum is about 300 passengers on board. And all our ships are designed with the latest technologies for environmental protection. The sustainability is in the core of our strategies since the beginning. And our latest CSR roadmap is focused on 3 main pillars. The first one is about the environmental and health protection. The second one is how to improve the well-being of employees, our own employees. And the third one is to involve our stakeholders in a systemic, sustainable approach. And concerning plastic, it's in the first pillar of environmental and health protection, where we have ambitious goals like reduction of our carbon footprint by 30%, but before 2030, reduce all the air emissions by 90% before 2026. We treat all the sewage waters. We also participate in an international alliance to preserve 18 million of square kilometers of marine areas. And we deploy a circular economy approach with reducing, reusing and recycling waste. So in this topic, we decided to eliminate totally all the single-use plastics on board and in our offices. But it's not very easy to eliminate plastics in ships. It's not the same thing in a standard hotel. So the first step, we had to audit our ships and identify the items to eliminate. So we identified about 20 items, cups, straws, stirrers, bags, bottles, and other packages. And the second step, we had 2 main challenges. First, to find the right solution to replace these packages. So to find the right solution, we have to consider the life cycle assessment, economical, social, and technical aspect. And the second main challenge is to educate our staff and our passengers to accept these changes, because it's not so easy. Let me ask you, do you accept to drink your favorite mojito without these 2 straws, plastic straws? It's not so easy, you know? So, ¿cómo beber un mojito sin pajitas, plásticos pajitas? Es, necesito traducción. Es no fácil, pero I switch in English. It's a challenge, a lot of challenges. It took about 3 years to reach our goal, especially for the bottled water, because we used to use about 1 million bottles a year, 1 million bottles a year, plastic bottles. And for a ship to replace plastic bottles, we have to produce waters in a good quality, good taste, we have to serve this water in cabins, respecting hygienic conditions. And we have to, as I said, educate our passengers to accept to use refillable water bottles and to use this kind of water. So we first had to find how to purify, how to produce this water. We found Norway technology, Norwegian technology called Nordac to with ultrafiltration to produce this water in a good quality. We installed new machine to fill bottles and close the bottles. And after that, we had a big campaign of communication to participate in this changement. So I'm happy to announce that we are about to reach this goal now. And as we signed last year in 2022, the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative from the United Nations Tourism Organization, we will declare soon this success. And now the next step is to work on the microplastics, how to eliminate the microplastics. Yes.
Thank you, Wasim, for your commitment and also for reminding me a very important aspect that needs to be mentioned about the action frameworks under One Planet. Actually, they require reporting. So they're not just pledges. Normally on an annual basis, we are getting in touch with the signatories to understand what has happened and what has been the progress and where support is needed. So basically there's a follow-up process trying to accompany in the best possible way we can all of those that are making these commitments to transform. So thank you, Wasim. Our next speaker is Tono Franco. Tono is the co-founder of Global DIT. He's an economist specializing in planning, product design, and marketing. Tono, the colleagues have been sharing how they are engaged in the implementation of initiatives. They have been explaining how they are leading by example. But to ensure a green transition, all stakeholders need to play a role. Many of you said it. And also we need enabling environments which can be triggered by better policies. So from your experience, what role can destination policymakers play so as to support action in these areas: climate, plastics, food waste, circularity, or even inclusion?
Ok. Gracias, Virginia. Bueno, muchas gracias por darme un magnífico motivo para venir a aprender y comprender, porque al final estos foros son absolutamente imprescindibles para que nos vayamos. Antes había algún ponente que hablaba de estar en la frontera del conocimiento de los datos sobre la transformación sostenible y claro, es un lujo, ¿no? De pronto no lo haces, pero cuando tienes la oportunidad porque te invitan, pues te pones aquí y yo llevo mi Moleskine llena de notas y de cosas que realmente son sorprendentes, que trato de enlazar, etcétera, ¿no? Y qué bueno sería que los gestores de destino pudieran tomarse 2 días para entender y comprender unas dinámicas que desde siempre le han sido ajenas. Nosotros, yo soy un diseñador de políticas públicas y me toca ir a destinos de todo tipo, porque la pregunta, como todas las que se formulan aquí, que son complejísimas, tiene multitud de respuestas, ¿no? Y para empezar es que los destinos no parten de la primera, no tienen el mismo resto en esta partida de póker. Entonces hay destinos como este en el que nos encontramos, que es fantástico escuchar a un conseller contando su ley, su apuesta, entender que el motor es el turismo, Pero hay otros destinos en los que me toca trabajar de vez en cuando, donde el éxito es convencer al tomador de decisión pública de lo importante que es el turismo. Excuso decirles lo de la sostenibilidad o la digitalización. Entonces, para empezar, no es una respuesta homogénea ni fácil. Esa es la primera. Pero, hombre, lo que tiene que crear, y esto es lo primero, es un marco de colaboración conjunta para que las áreas, estoy hablando del tomador de decisión último, porque al final el gestor del destino en materia turística tiene poco poder. El que tiene la capacidad de crear esos marcos de colaboración son los tomadores de decisión que están por encima, y que el gestor del destino, entendido solo turismo, y cuando es solo turismo es una visión promocional normalmente, no es una visión de gestión de la sostenibilidad. Entonces, lo que nos encontramos normalmente es que hay una gran separación vertical de las áreas. Entonces, lo primero que los políticos deben de entender, los tomadores de decisión, da igual, el stakeholder que sea, ¿no? Pero en materia política específicamente, deberían de entender que hay que cruzar las actividades. Esta verticalización de esto es innovación, esto es cambio climático, esto es sostenibilidad, esto es medio ambiente, esto es igualdad. Hoy hablábamos de las señoras que tienen que mover 60 kilos para hacer una cama. Y esto tiene mucho que ver con la dignidad, la calidad del trabajo, la sostenibilidad, la igualdad de género. Entonces, lo primero sería encontrar esa manera, ¿no? de encontrar ese encuentro. Luego, otorgar relevancia a la actividad turística. Decían antes, no, el que lleva lo digital está allí en la última esquina y sí, tenemos de sistemas. Hay uno que hay ahí que, pues excuso decirle lo de la sostenibilidad, ¿no? El otro está en el despacho 2 puertas más para atrás, ¿no? Entonces, hay que otorgar relevancia a la actividad turística desde una visión holística, desde una visión integral. No por el hecho solo de que las acciones no son inocentes, no hay ninguna acción inocente, siempre hay una huella, siempre hay. Y en ocasiones se asume y sobre todo hay que gestionarla. Y ese es el siguiente paso, empoderar al área de turismo para que sea capaz de gestionar esas situaciones y finalmente entender, también lo han dicho aquí, no, yo es que soy el más sostenible. Aunque lo de los premios, que es algo de lo que hablábamos el otro día, lo de los premios es interesante, ¿no? Porque es una motivación más para obtener resultados a corto plazo. En muchas ocasiones nos enseñaban el otro día cómo, y soy presa de ello, cuando vas a cambiar al canal 12, eres capaz de darle 7 veces al clic en vez de buscar el 12. Por la inmediatez. Yo creo que también hay que hacer entender a los gestores de destino que esto no es un resultado a corto, que esto es una apuesta que supera el ciclo político y que es una apuesta que también es cierto que los diseñadores de política de sostenibilidad, de transformación sostenible de los destinos, tienen que dar de comer a cada uno de los actores que intervienen. Y deberíamos de tener en cuenta que aunque es una acción a largo plazo, debemos de entender que a corto es mucho más fácil si vas mostrándole a los diferentes actores del ecosistema turístico, incluyendo a la ciudadanía e incluyendo a estos otras verticales que tienen que ver con esos aspectos más sostenibles, sociales o ambientales, es mucho más fácil convencerles si encuentran resultados a corto, pequeñas acciones que le den, por eso decía lo de los premios, ayer hablábamos de los Oscars, de la sostenibilidad, de encontrar aquellas cositas que les van moviendo, ¿no? Entonces creo que es un actor, o sea, que el gestor del destino y sobre todo el tomador de decisión último es un actor imprescindible para pegar todas las acciones que cada una de las iniciativas, desde los programas supraestatales liderados como es el caso de One Planet, o las acciones de Booking, ¿no? Necesitamos realmente que el gestor del destino, y con esta gran diferencia entre grandes destinos, pequeños destinos, etcétera, envuelva todas las acciones y las pueda establecer sinergias y provocar la transformación sostenible.
Thank you, Tono, very much. At the end of the day, we wish to let's say, to transport that vision, the vision of a system through the activities that we implement in the initiative. So hopefully the vision of a system would be also integrated in tourism policies, that they can look at these aspects more holistically. Tono, you mentioned also the importance of stakeholder engagement, which is a key element. It has been mentioned in many of the panels discussing governance. I wanted to ask Jose Juan about the plan and the development of the plan that you just told us about, and how did you encounter challenges with regards to stakeholder engagement when you were developing the climate action plan?
I will say that on the contrary, sincerely, we believe that if we have a true north proposed that which such reach a net zero emission by 2050, we know that and we have already a climate action plan set for the whole sector. We know that the commitment of the destination companies, professional association, and DO is total. And they are willing to work together the road as soon as possible, as demonstrate the collective endorsement with the Glasgow Declaration. So we think that we are ready. We have to jump to the swimming pool and to do the job. But also I have to say that more close collaboration is necessary at the regional level between Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Energy Transition and Climate Action. For me, this is a really important topic. We were talking today to the sealers, and I think that we can go faster and further if we work more closely. About okay, this is all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jose Juan. Thank you, Jose Juan. We couldn't agree more. Collaboration is clearly not easy. It's a task on its own, and it requires a lot of effort. This brings me back to Jorge. Jorge, the One Planet Network is rooted on the principle of collaboration and sharing of best practices. Do you have an example for us where the network as a whole, with the different thematics, programs, have collaborated on a topic to accelerate the pace of change?
Yes, Virginia, and I think that today we have heard, just to simplify, 3 very concrete solutions, and all of the representatives in this panel are engaged in implementing these solutions. The first one, it is how to decarbonize the operations of the tourism sector and making it aligned to global frameworks. The second one, we've heard about it, it is how to ensure that we have a solid options to phase out the food waste, change behaviors, use that food to transform also business models. The third one, and I will speak a little bit about this, is on single-use plastics. We heard the inspiring story of Brunel. We have also heard from Booking. What do they mean in general? They mean that for you, whether you are a student, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are an authority, moving towards circular approaches makes sense. It adds value to your company, it adds value to your employees, it adds value to your operations, overall to your reputation, your ability to capture finance, and your ability to retain customers. In this tourism sector, you can do it by these 3 approaches. Something that we have learned and that it has been transformative is the issue of plastic pollution. In 2000, and I believe it should have been in 2017, the United Nations Environmental Assembly gave a mandate to the One Planet Network that was to bring together the food systems program, the global tourism program, all the programs that I spoke in the beginning of my interview, and start getting the global community ready to solve one major challenge. It is to phase out the use of single-use plastics and create a plastic-free economy for these different value chains. The programs started working together for a period of 2 years, the results have been really encouraging. And I just want to share with you the 4 main findings that actually translate to many of the other challenges that we're hearing in the tourism sector. The case to move to circular approaches is anchored in these 4 points. The first one, it's the need to use reliable standards. You need to have a set of checklists. You need to have something to measure your efforts against which you want to accomplish. We heard that beautiful story from Booking. The second one is the need to move towards behavioral change. You want to solve a problem, you cannot do it alone. You have to bring your customers, your suppliers along. And that we heard it beautifully from Ponant. Eventually, we have to change our behaviors. The third one, it's you need to buy differently. The way we procure, how we procure, the choices that we make at the procurement level are critical. The fourth one is that you cannot create a policy or a framework for businesses and the productive sector if you don't bring the businesses with you. You cannot dictate. You have to build with your stakeholders specifically. Obviously, this eventually results in the need to create value for your company. One of the things that we have also learned is that once you have those elements there are a number of companies that are at different stages. Some are more advanced and are ready to embrace this, leapfrog, take the competitive edge. Others require training and support. Solving these global challenges, it's not to be done in this competitive zero-sum game. It just adds to make better business, more responsible authorities, and more engaged consumers. This is the experience that we have taken, and through the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative, which is the gold standard of managing plastics in the tourism operation that we are implementing with the World Tourism Organization and all these wonderful partners, it is the best gateway that you have for your enterprise to really embrace change. This, you can do it voluntarily, and it's wonderful. It will become a norm, and this is extremely important. In this year, there is a global commitment, you have read it in the newspapers, to develop a treaty that will address plastic pollution and phasing out plastic pollution. So you can get ahead of the game by using the tools, the resources, the checklists, the standards that we have, and just join this wonderful global movement of the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative that's being spearheaded wonderfully by the partners here and the Global Tourism, World Tourism Organization.
Thank you so much, Jorge, also for the support that we received from the Secretariat, because through the Secretariat and the collaborative work with the other programs is how we are actually able to take part, for example, in the negotiations of the International Plastics Treaty, which is now being discussed in different platforms. So we have the possibility to influence bottom-up, and we have the possibility to influence top-down, hoping that both approaches will converge into better policies, better practices. So that's that's an interesting lead that we're following. Case, we said in the intro that we would reflect a bit how we can support destinations through the application of our action frameworks. What are the next steps for the travel program of Booking? Have you thought about possible uses at destination level?
No, absolutely. And I think for us, for me, and for Booking, here starts the exciting part. Right? Because we now have all the data, we know what the baseline is, and now we need to work, okay, how can we get into action and help accommodations to level up and to move up and to implement more sustainable actions? And we cannot do that alone. But I wouldn't be working for Booking if we are going to take a data-led approach to how can we educate the accommodations in taking this next step. And I think this is a great example where we can work with destinations, with experts, plastic, food waste. Through our program, we can now see on destination level till what extent accommodations have implemented a certain category of sustainability action. For example, on plastic, we can look at the destination and say, hey, this country or this destination has done great on renewable energy, but is lacking on removing single-use plastic. How can we come up with a targeted approach with the knowledge to a certain segment of accommodations and come up with a really sharp campaign to help them and give them the tools to move on those actions? And they will be rewarded for that because then on our program and on our other programs, they can then demonstrate the actions they've taken. And it's the same for food waste. We need to bring together the experts, the destination, and the insights in order to make this work. So I feel that's a very important step where we can have real impact.
Thank you so much, Case, for that reflection. It would be really amazing to put that data to good use, right? For destination makers to make better destination managers, sorry, to make better decisions. At the end of the day, it's a lot of properties that are using booking.com. So I think it could provide great insights.
Maybe we will work on the customer journey as well. Like as was rightly pointed out, only our
Amazing.
data shows different result as the professor showed yesterday, but it's a good point, and that's the next step on our program as well. How can we create, and this is also an industry issue, how can we create more awareness among travelers and look for the more sustainable options?
We clearly need to tackle the issue of the straw and the mojito. So we have to discuss about that ASAP. Sam, what about you? Do you think the global roadmap for food waste reduction, which by the way now is addressing mainly accommodation businesses and cruise liners, do you think it can also provoke certain changes at destination level?
Absolutely, and it has to. So the roadmap is going to help companies lay their path forward for action on food sustainability and food waste. But they can't implement it without the destination. So it takes policy and infrastructure alignment in the areas of operation for these businesses for them to actually be able to create and implement programs that are in line with the goals and the intention of the roadmap. Really what we're seeing right now is we are advocating at all levels for to place a high priority on the loss and waste of food. And for that reason, we're seeing global brands and also governments setting priorities, legislation, restrictions around wasting food, sending organic waste to landfill, avoiding donation of surplus food and things like this. So in fact, if destinations don't move quickly to secure their food system or make these circular dynamics of their food system and their tourism systems, you're going to have businesses knocking on your doors and saying, my brand is requiring that I divert food waste. Where is the infrastructure for this? My brand is requiring I donate food. Your policies aren't clear enough to help me do that confidently. So I would encourage all destinations to take a look at how their policies are aligned for things like food donation and food waste diversion. Infrastructure for food waste diversion has to be zoned and licensed, and there are experts and engineers who need to be educated and hired and compensated in these spaces for it to work. And you as a destination actually have a consistent voice for all of these tourism businesses that you work with. You can advocate for donation systems that support the most vulnerable in your communities. You can also absolutely invest in infrastructure, but you can also deliver job skills training programs to local hospitality and food service operators. So even when they leave a hotel and go down the street to another one of your hotels, they'll still carry that culture of food sustainability with them throughout your local sector. And also invite your guests into this conversation. Our guests travel between our destinations, and there's more and more information, education campaigns available for guests. And they're actually happy in some cases to hear about tourism, to hear about sustainability, and to hear about what tourism businesses are doing to address it. So WWF and others have resources on communicating the topic of food waste to guests in a way that is appropriate and enriches their experience as opposed to takes away from it. And it's something that could have a really consistent voice, say, if you were to ground a campaign on food sustainability or sustainability in general in a place, that then all of your businesses can benefit off of that. So in closing, I wanted to actually share, I just thought of this as I was sitting up here, a concept that I found really quite inspirational. A friend shared with me recently. And the concept, it's a little, just a tiny complicated. I know based on our conversations that everyone can handle it. It's Holons. It's spelled Holons. And when we think about priorities and strategies, especially here at such a global forum, sometimes we even use the right hand gestures. We're sitting here at the global level, then there's municipal levels, then there's businesses. There's a hierarchy to that that can oversimplify the complexity at each level among our systems. Hollands refers to the act of organizing information in concentric circles instead of in layers, because our destinations are within our countries, they're within our communities, and they're within our worlds, and our businesses are within those. And it's really only by zooming in and zooming out can we align all of these appropriate mechanisms to transform systems in ways that can secure them for nature and also for all of our communities that we serve and live in.
Thank you, Sam. And actually, by addressing food waste, the tourism sector has the possibility to actually contribute to a more sustainable global food system. It is through better consumption of food by the sector and the individuals that we can trigger changes on the production side. So we really need to do this. It's cost effective, it's good for the environment. And on top of that, unfortunately, still 1 out of 9 people still go to bed hungry at night. So it's also a humanitarian act.
I'll also just say there's so much more to be said. And if your destination is thinking about a holistic food sustainability plan, we'd love to keep having the conversation.
Absolutely. I think it's a perfect area of work for pre-competitive cooperation, as many others. All right, we are almost finalizing, but before we do, I'd like to still see from Wasim maybe the approach for destinations from Ponal. Are you also thinking differently, how to engage with destinations differently, or how to transport, benefits differently to destination?
Yes. As I mentioned, our third pillar of our CSR roadmap is to involve the stakeholders for a better sustainability, and we decided to work on all the value chain, including, of course, the local communities and the destination. We have a big work to involve local communities in our development. We are working on education, on environment protection, on promotion of cultural heritage. And what we do, we send some of our employees to the destination. They stay a period to discuss with local population, to know their expectations, their needs. And also we host some of people in our headquarters on board our ships to know better our activity. And it allows us to improve the communication and relationship. And it's a new type of collaboration. It's not very easy because there are different cultures, different needs, different requests, but we think that we cannot do sustainability without considering human aspect, without considering their expectation. And now the second project we are working on is called Green Corridor. Green Corridor is a work with the stakeholders from transport, from hotels, food providers, to have a sustainable journey door to door. Means we have to offer an experience to our guests with the maximum of environmental respect, and also including the cultural aspects and promotion of the local biodiversity, the local culture. So
thank you.
We have a lot of challenges.
I think this value chain approach that you are just mentioning in the Green Corridor project actually connects very well with the systemic thinking we have been trying to portray throughout the panel. I'm going back to Tono to have one last reflection on policies and how that systemic vision can be transported into the policies to create more enabling environments. Tono, having heard all panelists, what would be your recommendations for destination managers when they are thinking about their next move?
Gracias por la pregunta todavía más difícil que la anterior. Bueno, es que cada colectivo responde a unos estímulos, ¿no? Que pueden ser económicos, pueden ser políticos, pueden ser sociales. O sea, yo no tengo respuesta para esa pregunta, pero lo que sí que entiendo es que el paso ya está dado. O sea, tenemos grandes compañías que actúan en materia de sostenibilidad y además lo hacen a pulmón, digamos, lo hacen solas. Luego tenemos iniciativas políticas de destino que actúan y actúan en favor de esta sostenibilidad, etcétera. Yo me quedo con que a cada uno hay que darle el estímulo que corresponde, ¿no? En este marco de referencia del que estamos hablando permanentemente, de gobernanza participativa, donde contemos con todos, con la ciudadanía, con las empresas, con los trabajadores, etcétera, esto tiene que ser un win-win. Es decir, todo el mundo tiene que ganar. Y entonces yo estoy más no sé cómo hacerlo. Bueno, se me ocurren algunas cosas que prefiero no contar, porque a cada estímulo hay que darle una respuesta. Entonces, evidentemente, yo antes hacía mención de que, aunque la apuesta por la sostenibilidad es una acción a largo plazo, en materia de los gestores de destino, es una política pública lo que se están desarrollando en los destinos. Hay que retornar algo para los políticos que la lanzan. Entonces hay que obtener algunos resultados a corto plazo. Si todo lo ciframos a una política que tiene un horizonte temporal que supera el ciclo político, pues estaríamos complicados. Pero me inclino más a que tenemos un montón de herramientas encima de la mesa. Que los destinos que se están lanzando a esto, y ya decía antes que, claro, estamos en un destino fantástico, consolidadísimo, con un tejido empresarial responsable, que sabe también dónde tiene que tocar las teclas para responder a un mercado que está cambiando, pero hay muchos destinos que no están en este nivel de desarrollo y de compromiso, y esos destinos también hay que lanzarles un mensaje positivo, porque hay programas y políticas, digamos, de soft power que consiguen resultados sin la necesidad de que haya dinero. Si hay dinero también, pero tenemos acciones que hoy deberían de lanzarse ya. Los destinos tienen que tener un relato de sostenibilidad, de tal manera que aquel que se salga del relato pues está fuera de juego. No juega, no gana, se acabó, pues entonces la empresa no funciona. Entonces, primero un relato. Bueno, primero una hoja de ruta para saber lo que tienes que hacer, pero un relato, pero luego hay que sensibilizar a la propia población, al turista. Estábamos aquí hablando de educar al turista, que siempre dicen que eso de educar al mercado está muy complicado, pero educarle en valores que ya son propios, y si son del destino resulta más fácil. Regular, sancionar e incentivar. Luego sensibilizar y capacitar a la gente, pero capacitar en los dos sentidos. Yo hoy he aprendido ya la última de los solones, pues es que soy un neófito en esto. Tengo que aprender un argot, un discurso, tengo que entenderlo, pero también tendrán que entenderlo las gentes. Ayer, el otro día hablaban de que el diseñador del hotel tenía que hablar con el destino para entender cuál era su lógica y responder a eso, ¿no? Entonces, yo creo que hay acciones de gran contundencia. Este país ha puesto en funcionamiento con fondos Next Generation un programa de sostenibilidad que integra cambio climático, por ejemplo, descarbonización, que integra acciones que están en línea de una transformación sostenible basada en los Next Generation. Y afortunadamente hay dinero, pero para aquellos que no tienen ese dinero también hay soluciones y hay iniciativas que afortunadamente incluso suceden al margen de que las políticas públicas las acompañen. Entonces, el mensaje es que todo el mundo se lleve la parte que le corresponde y lo que decíamos, yo creo que hay que entender que hemos pasado o estamos pasando, y las previsiones hacia ahí nos están llevando, hay que entender que hemos pasado de la promoción para que vengan a la gestión para que sea sostenible. Y eso es algo que afortunadamente muchos destinos están tirando adelante esa iniciativa y muchas empresas magníficas con una potencia brutal lo están haciendo. Y esos programas transnacionales que se lanzan esta casa, la OMT o las Naciones Unidas lanzan programas a los cuales los destinos también se pueden sumar. La verdad es que es un lujo y gracias por enseñarme, la verdad.
Thank you, Tono. It's clearly complex, but we can advance together. We need to continue simplifying complexity, accelerating action, and of course, constantly improving. Jorge, would you like to say a few final remarks?
I'll just say 3 words. The first one, it is rethink. The recovery from the COVID crisis gives all of you an opportunity to rethink your own business models. Destinations, local authorities have the keys to bring on new policies, new frameworks. Once you have rethought, act, be consistent with what you have understood. Act on it. It may give you an advantage. It may help you do better. It may help you make more sustainable business. Once you have act, inspire. You cannot inspire if you have not asked. You cannot act if you have not rethought your business models. This has been a wonderful opportunity. I have enjoyed very much meeting and celebrating these extremely inspiring cases, and I encourage you to keep on working in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You've been fantastic. Thank you all very much for your support, and thank you, everyone. We look forward to discussing with you about One Planet and more in the networking sessions. Thank you.